Right now, stop and frisk on trial. Will the controversial policing tactic actually hold up in court? Well, we're live outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan to hear from an attorney for one of the cops who's blown the whistle on the NYPD. And next, Joe Biden came to town and he took the opportunity, along with Mayor Bloomberg, to push for an assault weapons ban. He and Newtown parents, they're calling on Congress to show some courage. The question is, do Senate Democrats have the guts? And later, has support for same-sex marriage reached a tipping point? Will March 2013 be remembered as a month when it all changed? And what other big issue might experience a sea change over the next decade? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks so much for joining us this Thursday evening, March 21st. Well, we begin tonight with stop and frisk. By now, you all know it's that controversial policing tactic used by the NYPD that lets police officers stop, question, and frisk people that they deem suspicious looking. Well, the practice has exploded under Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and earlier this month, the New York Police Department made its 5 millionth stop since Bloomberg took office. Now, more than 86% of the people subject for these stop and frisks, either black or Latino, and almost 9 out of 10 of them resulted in no arrests or summons. Well, that's why, in large part, stop and frisk is on trial as we speak. Now, during the first couple days of testimony, young men who were stopped and frisked talked about the humiliation of the experience. And at one point during his testimony, 24-year-old Nicholas Pert, he wept on the stand. David Flood, the lead plaintiff, he's a medical student who testified he was stopped and frisked outside his own apartment building as he helped a locked-out neighbor use a spare set of keys. Devin Almanor, he's a freshman at All Hallows. That's a Catholic school in the Bronx. He was 13 years of age when he was stopped, handcuffed, and taken to a precinct house for 6 hours. Never was he charged with a crime. Well, since then, we've heard testimony, and it has turned to the so-called whistleblower police officers who say that they were pushed to fill stop and frisk quotas, all driven by numbers. Adil Polanco has been a guest on this program, one of the small group of officers who secretly recorded station house conversations to prove these quotas. He came to court prepared to discuss those recordings that he made about 3 years ago. Now, we can't play for you what was said in court, but when he spoke about this issue with us last year, he supplied us with those secret recordings. Take a look and a listen.
I want 250 to see something. I want a ghost town. I want to be able to echo from one end of the street to the other. You understand? That's what I want in a perfect world. So that's your mission. Guys need college, need activity, there you go. So you got to get me moved.
Now, during his testimony, he said, quote, "We were handcuffing kids for no reason." Now, testimony, it continued today in the Lower Manhattan courtroom, and our own Dominic Carter, he was there. He joins us now with more. Dominic?
And good evening to you, Richard. Another day of damaging testimony for the NYPD, not just from those whistleblower police officers you mentioned, but those same officers that secretly recorded their police commanders and what they claim are a clear system of quotas. Now, it was another day, Richard, on the stand for Officer Pedro Serrano of the 40th Precinct in the Bronx. Now, Richard, get this one. He claims in 1 month he had a high amount of arrests. He thought that he was going to be praised by his commanders, but because he did not have any stop and frisk, the form that the police use for that, as you know, Richard, is a 250, but because he did not have any 250s, he was actually criticized by his commanders. Now, I want to introduce you, Richard, to a new name in all of this, and you're not going to believe this. Officer Adrian Schoolcraft. Officer Adrian Schoolcraft. Now, his secretly recorded tapes were played in court today, Richard, and Officer Schoolcraft's home, after this happened, when he recorded his commanders, his home was raided by police, and he was brought by a deputy chief and a deputy inspector to a hospital psychiatric ward, the emergency room. This officer claims that for 6 days, Richard, he was kept there, and it was all done to shut him up. We spoke to his lawyer. You were here today monitoring the trial in which your client's audio tapes were played. Officer Adrian Schoolcraft. Explain to the audience exactly what happened.
Well, Adrian Schoolcraft is the officer from the 8-1 precinct who, in my estimation, was kidnapped from his home after secretly taping roll calls of the NYPD, clearly indicating that there is a quota system.
Now, when you say kidnapped from his home, explain for the audience. It's our understanding he was literally put into a psych ward against his own will?
Mm-hmm. Like they used to do in Russia. If you send somebody to a psych ward, you destroy their credibility, but more importantly, you also silence them, and I think that's what happened in this case.
How could somebody be put in a psych ward, a police officer, against their own will?
That's part of the ongoing litigation. I'd rather not comment on that right now. Today I was just here to monitor this trial, and the tapes that Adrian, Mr. Police Officer Schoolcraft, had made were authenticated and were admitted in this trial.
Now, of course, Richard, the other side of this argument, the city of New York maintains in court that it has done nothing wrong. They claim that stop and frisk, as you have reported night after night, their side of the argument, that it's an effective police tool. The city claims they go to the communities where the crimes are committed. But Richard, I started by talking about the damage in the courtroom, and let me give you an example of one of the secretly recorded tapes, Richard, that were played just today in court, in which one of the officers recorded his commander saying that stop and frisk, that they were non-negotiable, that either you did it or you were going to end up a pizza delivery man. Reporting from Lower Manhattan, I'm Dominic Carter. Richard, let's go back to you in the studio.
Hey, Dominic, while this plays out in the courtroom, this is also playing out, as you know, on the political trail. We got an election here. A lot of people want to be mayor, and the mayor, he's doubled down on stop and frisk. I want to play for everybody a clip. Now, Christine Quinn, we know, city council speaker, mayoral hopeful. She came out saying that, you know what, I think that we got to revisit this, and I support a monitor she would have for the NYPD. Mayor Bloomberg, he made it clear he was having none of it. Take a listen.
Make no mistake about it. This bill jeopardizes that progress and will put the lives of New Yorkers and our police officers at risk.
Okay, so mayor says, Dominic, he'll veto if it gets through the city council. Christine Quinn, in the most public break from the mayor, as you know, she's been accused here of being basically very obedient as a council speaker to the mayor. She said, well, he may veto it, but I got enough votes here for an override. Take a listen to what Christine Quinn said.
As crime has gone down, stop, question, and frisk, and they don't correlate. When stop, question, and frisk has peaked, crime has not been plummeting at the same level. The real decrease in crime in the Bloomberg administration happened when stop, question, and frisk was much, much lower. So is it important? It's not an opinion, it's the facts. It is not a critical strategy in bringing crime down. The data shows that itself. It is not a critical component to keeping our city safe. Now, I wouldn't abolish it. We want to leave it as a tool that can be used when it is necessary, but we need to have real structure around this practice.
So there you have it, Dominic. This is playing out in the courts, and it's also playing out on the political trail. First time, at least I remember, Quinn and the mayor really butting heads on something like this.
Indeed, Richard, you hit it on the head. That's exactly what's going on. But one, keep in mind, Bloomberg is a lame duck, so he's gone in just a couple of months. Also keep in mind that Quinn needs to separate herself from the mayor. I don't know if she wants to do it in exactly this way, but something's definitely going to happen, Richard, in terms of the NYPD. The testimony is just so damaging, not just from the officers, but, Richard, from these secretly recorded tapes. There's no way around it. There's going to be some type of change with the NYPD.
And there also might be some pretty big bills to pay here with some of these civil suits, too. Dominic, thank you very much. So we'll continue to follow this case, obviously, in Lower Manhattan. And remember, you have a mayor who said he's going to veto it, and you got a council say they have enough votes here to override when it comes to the monitor. All right. We will keep this conversation going online. Please go to Facebook and Twitter. Make your opinion heard. Stop and frisk. Do you agree here with not only the folks in the courtroom, at least that have testified for the few days here, and the majority of New Yorkers, it seems that it's bad for New York City, or are you with Ray Kelly? Are you with Mayor Bloomberg to say it's a critical tool to keep the city safe? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, though, we are going to change gears and bring you the highlights from another event in New York today, a press conference where Joe Biden, as well as the aforementioned Mr. Bloomberg, attended, along with the Newtown parents. Tough words here from members of Congress who said there will be no assault weapons ban in the legislation before D.C. We'll be right back.